Hello, friends of native plants. I'm Eva. I'm the Ecology and Stewardship Specialist at Lower Trent Conservation. And I wanted to welcome you to another episode of Who, What, Where, When, Why, and How of native plants. And today's episode is dedicated to wildflower kits. In the first week of June, you will be picking up your wildflower kits and your potted saplings from the Lower Trent Conservation Office, and I will be sending out an email with all the details. But today I just wanted to tell you a little bit about your kits, where they're from, what's in them, where to plant them, and of course how to plant them. When you pick up your kit from the office, if you can't plant right away, just keep them somewhere in the shade. Make sure that they're well watered if they need to be. So I've made up a little kit here for you using seedlings that I have grown myself at home, just to give you an idea of what you will be getting. So in case you've never gotten a wildflower kit from Lower Trent, this is what it will look like. There are two kinds of kits, Kit A and Kit B, and each kit has 6 different species of native wildflowers, and there are 3 pots per species, and they're about this size. Mine are a little smaller than what you will get in your kit, because your kit is professionally grown and I'm just an amateur. Your kits are grown by Grow Wild Native Plant Nursery. They're located in Omimi, just outside of Peterborough, and they collect seeds sort of in the local region so that the plants you buy are adapted to local conditions. Now, what they do is they collect the seeds, and in the winter time, sort of late winter, they need to trick them into germinating so that they can grow them in time for you to pick them up in early June. And there are different ways of encouraging seeds to germinate when there's still snow on the ground. The most common way is called seed stratification, and that's basically putting your seeds in moist sand and keeping it in the fridge for a few months. And what that does is it breaks down the seed coat, weakens it a little bit, and it makes it easier for the plants to germinate. So once the seeds germinate, they grow into little seedlings, and they are transplanted into these larger pots where their roots develop. So they might not look very impressive on the top when you get them, but they're bulking up their roots, and that will give you a nice healthy plant. I did create a couple of information fact sheets about each kit. So for example, it lists the different species, what color they are, when they bloom, approximately how high they get, how tall they get, and sort of what they're tolerant of. Now on the back of each fact sheet, there's again more background information, but for those of you who would like some suggestions for a planting plan, I've mocked up a little planting plan at the back. Very simple, tall plants at the back, short ones at the front. So that's a go-to if you need more help. And these are available on our website on the native plant sale page where you placed your order. All the species are native, which means that they are found in sort of our local ecological food web. So if you were to roam around sort of from the Peterborough to Kingston area, you would find these guys in the wild, or at least records of them occurring historically. So they will be able to support insects and birds and mammals and amphibians and all those kinds of things, because they will be sort of a buffet that critters can feast on. Plus they'll look really good. All the species are drought tolerant. They like a lot of light. They can tolerate poor soils, so they're really easy to look after. I've tried to pick species that will give you something that's in bloom all the time once you plant them, starting in May and going all the way into October. You need to figure out where to plant these. So here are a few tips that will help you find the perfect spot. Number 1, they love a lot of sun, so you can plant them in direct light all day long. They can also grow in part shade conditions, which generally means about 4 hours of shade or less. They can tolerate poor soils. They don't need fertilizers or compost or anything like that. They like soils that drain well, meaning that the water doesn't sit sort of on the surface for hours after it rains. And that's it. I would also suggest not planting right up to your foundation, because a lot of these plants develop really deep roots which help water soak into the ground. So you might not want to plant them right up against your foundation. I would move them at least a few feet away just to be safe. Next thing to consider is preparing your site for planting. So if you're a lucky person and you already have bare soil, bare poor soil, you're good to go. You can plant these right away into your bare soil. Most of us, however, have quite a bit of lawn, so grass, to contend with. And grass is competition for these little seedlings. So what you need to do is you need to remove the competition, get rid of the competition to give these guys an advantage and get established. Now, there are different ways of killing grass. If you have lots of time, at least 10 weeks, you can put down a heavy plastic tarp to solarize the site, and that will basically cook all the living plants and any seeds and roots. But we don't have 10 weeks at this point. This is not an option. So what I like to do is a quick option. I like to put layers of newspaper or cardboard with wood chips on top, and that will smother the grass, and I can plant right through to the soil, and I don't have to worry about the grass. The wood chips will probably break down after 2 or 3 years, but by then I hope my wildflowers will be big and strong, and I won't need to worry about grass. Another thing you could do is you could get a sod cutter or just use a shovel and strip the sod and have bare soil exposed that way. You could put layers of newspaper on top of that and straw. That would work as well. Anything to kind of keep the grass at bay. Okay? So another technique that's gaining in popularity is to use gravel mulches. And what people do is they have a thick layer of gravel over top soil, and they'll plant right into that, and that reduces competition from weedy species and grasses. Now, the other thing you might want to consider doing, if you have sort of a defined place where you will be planting these, is to maybe create an edging around the bed so that grass roots don't start growing into your wildflower bed. And you can do that by digging a little trench, or you can install those plastic sort of grass guards all around, which is a little bit more work, or you can get creative. You just want the grass to stay away. That's the most important thing. How do we go about planting? So what I would recommend is that you consult the fact sheet I provided with the little layout for planting. And basically the idea is to put the shortest plants at maturity, plants that don't grow very big, at the front, and then gradually putting the taller ones at the back, just so that they're not blocking the view. So when you're ready to plant, before you start digging holes, I would just lay your pots on the ground. So here we go. And I would space them no more than 1 foot apart. Some of these guys are quite small, so it will take them a year or two to kind of fill in. But you don't want to space them too far apart. And I'm taking one species at a time, and I'm actually, instead of spreading them out equally, I'm clumping the same species together. It just creates a nicer sort of visual impact, and it gives bees a chance to sort of service one species at a time, which seems to be their preference. Okay, so here we go. This is fairly simple, or you can get quite complex and creative, but you get the idea. So this is roughly the spacing, and let's see here. So I'll just move these so you can see. Clear away the thick layer of wood chips. We're looking at this is about 3 inches of wood chips down to the soil level. And peel back the cardboard or the newspaper layers, whatever you used, and dig a hole that's about the size of your pot. Then you do your hocus pocus, squeeze the, ta-da, there we go, mud cake out. Oh, and my plant needs me to make this hole a little bit deeper. Oops. And you just want, again, the level of the soil in the pot to be level where the actual soil is at your planting site. Okay? And then we backfill. Pretty straightforward. Just gently kind of squeeze them down, make sure there are no air pockets. And you can bring the wood chips back, just again use the donut wood chip configuration and make sure that the wood chips are not touching your plants. Okay, there we go, very simple. Last thing you need to do, of course, is water them, and I just pour the water sort of on the side instead of directly on top of the wildflowers. Nice good drink. And that's it. And now you just repeat that 17 more times, or if you bought more than one kit, many more times. How do you care for these after you've planted them? If it's a dry spring or summer, please make sure you water them at least once a week. You'll be glad you did. The first year, they probably won't be able to flower for you, at least not all of them. They'll be working very hard on growing deep, strong roots. And because they're drought-tolerant species, they need to develop those roots so that they can find enough moisture to last through really hot summers. So don't worry if none of them flower. The second year, they'll produce bigger leaves and will start to flower. By the third year, they will be fully established. They'll bulk out and will be sort of maintenance-free. At that point, you won't need to water them. You may need to weed any grass or undesirable plants that come poking through the wood chips, but with time, these guys will get established and kind of shade the ground and keep those weeds at bay. Hi again. Had some technical difficulties with the video, so I had to come back and just to say, after you've planted, congratulations, give yourself a pat on the back, because you just did ecological restoration in your own backyard. If you have any questions or comments, give me a shout. So thanks again for joining me for how to plant wildflowers, and we'll see you again. Enjoy spring. Bye.